Can you really succeed in this country as an immigrant? Well, you will know the answer very clearly by the end of the show. Hi, welcome to You Belong Here, the place to be for positive stories of immigrant women from all around the world. I am Porcia Chen Silverberg. I was made in Taiwan. This show is brought to you by the You Belong Here Foundation, a multimedia social enterprise that nurtures a community of immigrant sheroes and their allies. You are about to hear from inspiring women sharing their successes, challenges, and how they are living meaningful American dreams. Stay a while to pick up some useful tips on how you can live your own American dream. Today, you will meet Noni Allwood and Jackie Shoelerman. Noni is a courageous advocate and champion to women and Latinos. Trained as an engineer and after years in corporate executive roles, she now dedicates her life to research, speaking, advocacy, and consulting. Noni came from El Salvador. Jackie is a top producing real estate broker and recognized as a leader in her field. She grew up in Iran. Jackie holds both a degree in architecture and a degree in business finance. She makes concerted effort to give back to her community by actively participating in local charitable organizations. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here, both of you. Wow, you have both accomplished so much, overcome so many obstacles, and I can't wait to hear your stories and really for our viewers to hear how one could succeed, even if you have very little resources, very few contacts, and didn't know anything about the American culture. In your case, Noni, I know you said you spoke English when you came from El Salvador. So you were in your 20s, single mom.
Yes.
And because you spoke English, didn't you say people kind of just assumed you knew the culture and thought you had it all figured out, but that really wasn't the case?
Well, it was funny because it works both ways. People felt that I could understand humor, which is very, very hard to pick up. As you know, humor is the last thing you pick up from a culture.
That's true.
On the other hand, I had an accent, and that distanced me. And unfortunately, there's such a bias around accents that mine was the accent that is not seen very favorably. So I was always questioned as an engineer whether I had the credentials and I had the experience to be credible and be reliable.
Wow, interesting.
So it worked both ways.
Yeah, that's true. It does work both ways. What about you, Jackie? You were a young person when you came.
Yes, I was. Not quite young. I was 19, so I came to go to the university to get my degree in architecture, and it was tough. At that time, I was so young that I didn't know that being the female in the world of architecture was going to be difficult, and I assumed that there were lots of them there. But quickly I found out that I was only the second woman in the entire school of architecture.
What?
Yeah,
wow.
So that was interesting. It has pros and cons. So I was getting good attention from the guys, but at the same time, I didn't have many female friends. And then getting into the workforce in the architecture and construction, again, I was dealing with the same thing. Being a female, you weren't taken seriously. Like Noni said, having an accent, they assume that perhaps you're not smart enough. But what I realized very quickly that there were going to be some setbacks, there were going to be challenges, And I just trained my mind to have that mindset that I'm going to march forward.
Wow. I think the accent issue is actually a very real issue.
Correct.
And we've spoken before that, I hate to say it, but we all know there are some accents that are more preferred or
Sure.
even coveted, right, than the other accents.
Yeah.
And it's a very real bias that some people have on accents. So, but both of you have succeeded regardless. And both of you are not apologetic that you have an accent, because that's who you are, that's who I am. So for other immigrants, and I know I've spoken with a lot of immigrant women actually, who have really been hesitant to step up to a leadership role because they said, well, I have an accent. So they become very shy or pulled away from being at the table because they don't feel that they have the right to be there simply because they have an accent, even though they're completely brilliant. So what would you advise to these immigrants who still may not be as comfortable with having their accent?
You know, Portia, something magical happened the day I realized that my accent wasn't going away, and I decided to make peace with it and realized that I could focus on spelling and my grammar and the way I spoke and the way I used my hands to express things and the way I put my thoughts together, because the accent wasn't going to happen. And the moment I dropped that burden that I was placing on myself, then something magical happened, which is I became non-apologetic about it. And then
it's all in your attitude.
It's all
right?
in your attitude, but it's easier said than done.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. What about you, Jackie?
Well, as I get older, I realize that, like Noni said, the accent is not going to go away. It's going to be there.
Right.
So you might as well live with it and try to learn, speak more of a fluent and high level and be articulate. Just that's really all I can tell you. I think older I get, it's not bothering me as much as it used to do when I was younger.
Yeah, there is something about aging and having more maturity, right? Supposedly we get that.
And the other thing, Portia, is I think we need to remember all the time that the reason we have an accent is because we speak two languages,
That's
not
right.
one.
Beautiful.
So, as opposed to saying,
Exactly.
"Oh, I'm shrinking because I speak with that." No, you celebrate it. You speak two languages.
Exactly, exactly. I remember thinking that when I was younger, thinking, yes, I may have an accent, but you know what? I speak Chinese fluently.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can speak Chinese and if you can pick up Chinese like I did English, right? So
That's true.
you're right. It is owning it, be proud, and having that positive attitude too, right?
Correct. That is correct.
Yeah.
I understand now that I'm getting more attention because when I call my clients or prospective clients, the accent actually plays part of it because they say, I remember you, and it sort of makes me stand out to a certain degree.
Wow,
because
interesting.
you don't get lost or you're not forgotten when they hear the same accent over and over. It creates that identity that I've been looking for. So now I'm pretty proud that I have the accent and use it on a positive matter.
Wow, that's interesting. So branding,
Branding.
which is now so huge. Everywhere you turn around, there's something, a video or a story about branding. And
Authenticity. That's the big word.
Very
Showing
nice.
up authentically. And
That's
it's
right.
part of who you are. You need to embrace it and you celebrate it.
So we have 2 tips already. Have a positive attitude, right? And really be proud of who we are, the way we are, and being authentic. That's awesome. Are there other tips while we're here that you may have to offer to immigrants who are still trying to crack the code and feeling a sense of belonging and really assimilating and being an American?
You know, the one thing I would say, and I published some research around Latinos, that's the area that I work mostly with, is 76% of Latinos cover some parts of their identity when they don't feel it's safe. So Ricardos will come Rickies, Carlos will come Charlies, or you will stop speaking your native language, you will stop associating and covering, not being friends with other Latinos.
Wow.
So there's this way, and it's this also the pressure, the tradition that we've had to integrate and assimilate. So drop who you were and become this new way.
Right.
And I think that that's a huge loss, not only for us, which we're sacrificing and living somebody else's identity, but also for this country. Because this country has grown to be what it is thanks to the richness that our culture brings. So my other tip would be celebrate your culture, bring it on. Bring it on to wherever you go. Talk about how you got here, talk about your traditions.
Nice.
Because at the end of the day, people will know I'm Latina, right? So I might as well just use that to my advantage and celebrate who I am and the culture that I came from.
Another great tip, celebrate who you are, celebrate who we are. What about you, Jackie?
I pretty much agree with what Noni said. Celebrate who you are and be proud of where you came from and where you're going. Because sometimes people do forget where they came from. And it's an unfortunate thing. Realize you had a really good time where you grew up and you're embracing what the future has to offer. And be proud of your background and what you're heading forward for.
So what do you say to people, and I said this to you before the show started, that I think most Americans are just the most amazing, generous, kind-hearted, wonderful people. That's been my experience. And I know, though, in the last few years, my sense of security have actually been threatened a little bit for me. And I find that shocking. I've been here for 42 years, or I don't know, 40 some years. I've always felt like I belonged. So what do you say to people who are now starting to feel like the media perhaps, or, people that they have in their life are starting to be maybe a little bit more hostile, or there's more negative narrative out there? What would you say to them, and how would you combat that?
Well, that's a difficult one because I think we're all trying to figure it out as we go. I've never seen things to be this complicated for immigrants as I see it now, and the stereotypes and the negative stereotypes showing up in such a strong way and being played out by politicians to their favor, to instill fear in wonderful U.S. citizens that don't know what it's like, what brought us here. Immigrants don't come here to take advantage of the system. They come here to work and make a life and contribute. And I think that's the story that's being forgotten right now in the narrative. I have, as an immigrant, I have contributed to this country equally or perhaps more with my volunteering hours and my caring for the community and my caring for others that can take advantage of my privilege in a way that perhaps others don't. And I'm very proud of that. I'm only going to keep doing that.
Do you find that having participated with your local community and doing civic service, I know you've done a lot of volunteering too, Jackie, do you find that doing so really helped with your sense of belonging?
Sure, absolutely. And as I have to echo what you said, in my field, I work with all nationalities from all over the world. And I have to say that Americans are the best and the nicest and the easiest people to work with. And I absolutely love Americans. And I love being here. And I really take it very seriously of living and the opportunities that this country has provided for me. But there are going to be noises all the time. And my thought is that just stay focused, know what your mission is, what you're going to accomplish, and forget about the rest of it. And that's really all I do. I mean, I try not to really listen to too much of the news and the negative news because it really irritates me. And so and I read only the news or the articles that it's positive and it's going to help me to stay positive.
Mm-hmm. Well, good. Then you can catch more of this show. Then.
Yes.
That's what this is about, right?
I actually think also that I need to remember every single day I get out of bed that I am privileged,
Yeah.
and that I need to share that privilege with those that don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have my privilege all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but when I do have it, I need to put it to good use. And I think that's the secret. There's nothing wrong with having privilege. The question is, what
No,
are you going
not
to
at
do
all.
with it?
Right.
That's the big question. So that's, as long as I keep putting my privilege to use, I think I'm going to be okay.
That's nice. I just recently read a quote. I don't remember who said it, but she said, if your dream includes only you, then it's too small.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like right now is actually that time for all of us to step up.
Right.
Right? And
Exactly.
I think another thing I've heard is someone say, well, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu.
That's a good one.
Right? That's a good one. Wow.
Right.
I was like, that's interesting. So I feel like leadership, we've talked about this briefly, Noni, that I feel that all these things you have both shared already, being positive, having this positive attitude, being authentic, celebrate who you are, and pay attention to your branding. I feel like not every immigrant has perhaps the immigrant mindset, but I know all successful immigrants have this immigrant mindset, which are a set of qualities, I find. You know, the qualities that took you from a young 19-year-old going to college in Texas who didn't know anyone except for her brother and still just had to learn everything from scratch to who you are today,
Sure.
a successful realtor in Palo Alto, California. Wow. And you, Noni, you came as a single mom in your 20s and you had to navigate everything by yourself. You did not have a support system
No, not at all.
whatsoever. And here you are, right? You have your privilege. You are proud Latina. You are a proud community member and a leader. There are qualities that I know both of you have that really helped you become who you are today. So I'd love to talk a little bit about those qualities, right? I mean, so.
Yes, you know, what we tend to forget is that immigrants have superpowers. What I call superpowers, which is the experience of immigration builds skills that you don't even recognize, which is things like problem solving, incredible skills to problem solve, build community, teamwork and collaboration, of course, adaptability.
Yes.
We don't question, we just survive to the next situation, right, Jackie? It's the same, the next situation.
Yeah.
Cross-cultural communications, we know how to speak to people from other cultures because we already come from other cultures.
Right.
And so we have these attributes that are never
Persistence,
yeah,
right?
and the
perseverance,
Yeah.
and the attitudes towards risk. Once you leave your country, it's such a dramatic risk that you're taking, no matter how you come.
It is.
So you've moved your tolerance for risk to a new level.
Definitely risk-taking, huh? That's why I think so many immigrants are entrepreneurs.
Correct.
Well, some of them really had no choice. They couldn't find a job, so they basically had to become an entrepreneur. Although there are plenty of people who are native-born who are not entrepreneurs, and maybe they're looking for opportunities too. So I think risk-taking is definitely part of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, part of also immigrating from another country to another country, or in my situation from Iran to U.S., is that I've seen the other side. I'm not saying the other side was bad. From my perspective, was very good. I was with my family and was well taken care of. And when I came here, I quickly realized that I'm on my own. And I better grow up very quickly and be responsible. And there are situations that I could have easily gone a wrong way and found in a wrong path. And I look back and I said, oh, wow, how did I do it? But the life throws curveballs at you every single day. Even now, I get curveballs thrown at me
Sure.
every single day. So you just have to navigate through it, and you know, seeing the other side and seeing the opportunities that is in front of you, and all you have to do is stay focused, work hard. Anything is possible. What else can I ask for? It's a wonderful place to be.
Stay focused. I think that's really important, right? And showing up.
Yeah, showing
Wouldn't
up.
you say? Just really show up, even though you don't feel like it or you're scared, but you do it anyway,
Yeah.
right? And speaking of Iran, I know, Noni, you've been to Iran
Yes.
recently. But
She's got more information than I do. More recent information.
You need to come to El Salvador next, Jackie.
there you go. We'll organize the trip. Now, you haven't been back in
I have not.
40 years?
46 years now.
Wow.
I'm waiting for my 50th year.
Okay. Got it. Okay, great. So you really are such an American, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, but again, as I mentioned, I don't forget where I came from. It's always in back of my mind. I know who I was, where I came from, and where I'm going. And that's what I always tell everyone. Stay focused. Don't lose your identity, because some people do lose their identity.
Yes, that's true. I know I've spoken with some second generation children of immigrants, or even immigrants who came when they were very young, that they don't know how to speak their native language because their parents wanted them to learn how to speak English.
Correct.
And so they really didn't get a chance to learn it, which I think is really a shame, but completely understandable from their parents' perspective, right?
There's a writer, his name is De La Riva, I can't remember his first name, but he talks about the immigrant being the transmitter of culture, because they come and they tell you, this is how we did it in my country, this is how you're doing it here. They explain to you how it happened in your native country, in their native country. The children of immigrants are called the transmitters of culture. I'm sorry, the interpreters of culture, because they can see, this is how we do it at home, the Salvadorian way, and this is how society does. And the grandchildren are the redeemers of culture.
Oh, wow.
So they just take the culture and they pick and choose whatever they want. So the generations matter a lot when it comes to the experience of the immigrant. But around the redeemers, it's very diluted. But the immigrant and their children really, and they struggle with that. The children of immigrants struggle with that identity.
They do. I agree. Yeah, that's so interesting. We'll have to learn more about the research. And
yes, it's fascinating, because then you can start thinking, wow, no wonder it was so hard. For my daughter, for instance, she did speak Spanish, but she spoke with an accent, and so they feel caught.
Right. Not Hispanic enough, and not American
enough. Yeah.
Right. I've heard that before.
Yeah. And for the parents, is a little crazy as well. Portia, I don't know your experience with your children, but you're trying to raise children. I was trying to raise her the Salvadorian way, and she was going like, no, we're not there.
Yeah,
we're
no,
here.
I don't think so.
I don't have any children, but my sisters have the same experience with their daughters, and primarily daughters rather than the sons, and that they kept questioning that,
really?
This is a U.S., it's not where you came from. And it's a difficult situation for the parents, because they want to raise them the old-fashioned way, and then here we are in the U.S., and I would say that's probably a pretty difficult balancing act that a mom from any other country raising their kids here in the United States, they go through. And I really admire the parents walking their kids through this whole maze.
Well, I think that reminds me, when I was raising my kids when they were younger, I think another immigrant superpower or mindset is frugality, right? As an immigrant, I know I don't take anything for granted. I'm a total utilitarian. I want to reuse, repurpose, recycle. And my children are not quite the same, right? So I find that was kind of interesting. But the immigrants that I have met, most of them are very frugal. Or just, we don't take anything for granted.
That's right.
We're resourceful, and we also appreciate resources, right? So If you were to meet if you had a time machine, you can go meet your younger self. What would you offer to your younger self?
Oh my goodness. The authenticity question. Don't question who you are. You show up like you need to. It's hard. It's easier said than done. But I would have told myself, don't try to be someone you're not, because it was too hard.
Okay, Jackie.
For me, I would have gone into entrepreneurship much earlier than what I did. I was hiding myself in that corporate environment of security, the job securities, but there was a glass ceiling, and I could see that very clearly that there was no way for me to go there. But again, the financial security part of it was keeping me from taking that leap. And it had some downsizing in the corporation that sort of forced me get out of that environment and really explore who I am and my entrepreneurship. It was a very difficult task and a very difficult journey. Many days and evenings of crying my heart out that I worked for these corporations for so long, and I put everything in my soul and my heart into the corporation, and the corporation are downsizing, and as a result of that, I had to move on. But I look back and I said, I am so glad those days happened, because it really forced me to come out of my shell and pull that entrepreneurship out of me. And now I wouldn't even think twice to go work for a corporation, because I know what I'm capable of, and I know where I'm going. And it's a hard work, but anything is possible.
Nice. That's really nice. We didn't get a chance to talk about your stories of being in corporations, because I know you have
There's
whole
a lot of them.
Yes. Well, perhaps we'll do another show, do a podcast and recapture that. So a new tradition I'm starting on the show is I would love for you to complete a sentence. And the sentence will start with, only an immigrant woman, ...
Only an immigrant woman would know how to bring their culture and their traditions to the home and the workplace. I think the women have this incredible ability to not only value, but also tell the stories and bring it to life. And I think that immigrant women, if they tell their stories, I think they would help create a different perception and a different story of what immigrants are all about.
Great. And you?
I go back to, again, the obstacles that it's going to be.
Only an immigrant woman
knows how to navigate through all the curveballs and obstacles that it's going to be in your way, and then work around it. And if I have to say, also balancing the act of raising your children here in the U.S.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I feel like I want to sit here much longer to pull more wisdom out of you. And now, Noni, Jackie, and I would love to hear from you. We talked about so many interesting things. I'm curious, what's one thing that resonated with you? Please leave a comment. You Belong Here Foundation is committed to bring a plethora of positive stories of immigrants to the community and ignite community conversations. Tonight's show comes to you from Palo Alto, California. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, you deserve to be seen, be heard, and belong. You belong here. Thank you.
It was great. Thank you.
We're done?
Asian, African, European, or American. Whether you pray to God or atheist is irrelevant. Cause what you got inside is the same as all your preference. troubled and the homeless. Can you say everywhere you are is where your home is? Sharing your heart in the dark just like a lotus, letting your light shine bright so you can